Anyway, only 3 years later, by the age of 24, 25, this young female has reached the inevitable eventuality. She has outgrown the situation. She clearly reached a point in her development as a young adult in her 20s, which most of us do. We don't turn 18 and then suddenly overnight we're all emotionally fully developed, stable adults. We're still developing throughout our 20s and into our 30s, for fuck's sake. These elder men know it because they were once this age also. It's so fucked up. But anyway, she realized by this point that it isn't what she wanted in life. So she abandons both the relationship and her child, leaving it in the care of his father, who is now experiencing premature senility, mobility issues, etc. Who is to blame here? Who is to blame? Is it the young woman for abandoning her child in the relationship? No, it's the senior male, always. She clearly didn't know what she wanted in life. She was in no fit mental state to be making these decisions. He, as a fucking emotionally developed adult in his late 40s, fucking was. And this is always the case. Same with the Umbrella Academy girl. It's the fucking dude. He recognizes your issues and he's actively exploiting your issues by being anywhere fucking near you. It's how these men work. Anyway, because of this, age 26, she was unable to be within a healthy, functioning relationship with any young man of her own age demographic who would rightfully criticize this young female, not tolerate her immaturities, ultimately be unwilling to enable her because she's essentially only ever been enabled by predatory elder men who don't want her to address her issues. And so she entered another relationship with an elder male. After this failed, she then found herself in another relationship with an elder male, this one in his 50s. Despite the fact that she had recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer, how did this cancer develop? From an infection transmitted through sexual activity with these elder men. So not just indirectly, they are directly responsible for the death of a young woman whose life was realistically yet to begin. This is just another reason why I'm so fucking passionate about my work. In spite of her terminal diagnosis, she enters a relationship with a man in his 50s who proposes to her, "You're the love of my life, we're gonna get married." He knew this was absolutely never gonna happen. He was just using her for sex in the meantime. It is just utterly, utterly disgusting. And we're so quick to call out pedophiles because we just know at face value it's fucking sick, it's wrong, but we don't stop to comprehend that there's young adults who the exact same thing is happening to them. Just because, forget the fact that, when you're 18, you suddenly become an adult. That's it. Your emotional development has stopped. Your emotional and psychological development suddenly stops by age 18. Get some fucking perspective. I am 30 years of age, and I refer to people in their early 20s as being kids, right? And I'm only 30. So if you're a man in your late 50s and 60s, what are you seeing when you look at, somebody who's 21, 22 years old? If somebody at the age of 30 thinks of them as immature, thinks of them as being kids, I say about friends, in their early 20s, I say, oh, he's a nice kid. So what the fuck does that make somebody who's 21 years of age to a man in his 50s, or 25 to a man in his 60s? They know what they're fucking doing. They're targeting an age demographic which is ultimately easier to subjugate than women of their own advanced age who are not putting up with their bullshit. But they're working within the legality of the situation, the legal age of consent, 16, and, the age of 18 when you're considered to be an adult. These fuckers know exactly what they're doing when they target a woman who's 24 years of age or 25. Because even though morality does not justify it, legality does, and they know that people are desensitized. Because you see a young woman who's 25 in a relationship with a man in his late 40s and his 50s, and you think that's unusual, but whatever. Because most people are not in touch with their emotions. Most people do not think of it from a psychological perspective. Most people do not really think of the morality of it. Anyway, she dies. The day of her funeral arrives. Now, I never talk about myself and my own trauma, but just imagine how this made me feel. And imagine how her parents felt. So on one side of the church, we have a predatory elder male who is the father of her child. On the right-hand side of the church, this predator that she had only known for 6 months, whereas I've known this kid my whole life. He should have just stayed somewhere at the back of the church with his head down, for fuck's sake. But anyway, for some reason, we, the paternal side of the family, are sat on the second pew behind this predatory male. It's just so utterly antagonizing and infuriating. I was directly behind this man, looking at the back of his head. But anyway, astoundingly, he brought his own children. I'm not joking. His daughter looked a little younger than my cousin, and she looked fucking traumatized. She has had to witness her father giving validation to a girl not much older than herself, but not just validation, but sexual gratification. And this right here, it leaves your own daughter with the same issues that my cousin had, meaning that she is liable to only enter relationships with predatory elder men just like her father. It is a horrific, horrific, vicious cycle. Anyway, they genuinely had to require 2 separate funeral cars to keep these 2 predatory senior men apart. Such was the animosity between them over a fucking young woman, a girl essentially, a young woman resembling a teenager, both physically and mentally. These fucking creeps, I tell you. You know, on a serious note, I think most people by now will have come to realize I have been severely traumatized throughout my life by this shit. But I have addressed all of my trauma, I'm doing so ongoingly, by turning it into a positive, using it to inspire me to make a difference. Anyway, clearly, we can observe that this was a developing young woman with severe emotional and psychological issues that were not being addressed and instead being exploited. Now, here's the thing. If we can observe this girl's issues from the outside, then I tell you now, all of these senior men that have been in relationships with her, they definitely can. In truth, they are all aware of her issues, and by being anywhere fucking near her, are actively exploiting them. They have taken advantage of her issues. Unequivocal fact. And this is transferable. This is applicable to every age gap relationship of this nature. It is a generalization that you can make. These relationships, they should just not be happening whatsoever. Morally, ethically, fundamentally, they just present so many dangers. There's such a high capacity for abuse, be it not physical then emotional. They're ultimately, fundamentally exploitative, and you're more liable to succumb to psychological damage than you are to actually developing these relationships. By entering a relationship of this nature, so let's say you're a teenager or a woman in your 20s dating a man twice your age, your father's age, perhaps even your grandfather's age, you are taking a fucking huge risk, girl, and you do not need to be, you don't need to be taking that risk. Why are you taking that risk? What are you doing? I'm telling you now. Like, I usually try and be really rational, really psychoanalytical in my videos, but I'm telling you now, you need fucking help. Everybody can see it. They're just too fucking scared to say anything because they don't know how to handle the situation. They don't know how to protect you.